The junior clerk noticed her first because nobody else did. She stood at the long wood cabinet in the records vestibule of the Caravello Consortium, a thin, plainly dressed temp in a cleaning agency apron, her sleeves pushed neatly to the elbow, her dark hair tied in a low bun, and she was reading. Not pretending. Reading. Her finger moved down a column of dates on a ledger nobody had asked her to touch, and her brow drew faintly together as if a sentence had spoken to her out loud. Tomás Renza was 23, 3 months into the consortium, and he had been told by every senior in the building that his job in the next 48 hours was simple. Stay out of the way. The signing was tomorrow at noon. The visiting investor, Adrian Vesco, was already in the city, already at every lunch, already inside every smile in the marble foyer. The deal would fold 3 of the family's holdings into a clean structure Vesco had drawn up himself, and the lawyers had pronounced it elegant. They used that word twice. Tomás cleared his throat. "Miss," he said, "you aren't supposed to be in those." She looked up. She had a quiet face, warm brown eyes, no makeup. She was perhaps 24. "I'm sorry," she said. "I was emptying the bin. The cabinet was open." He glanced at the cabinet. It was not open. The cabinet had been sealed for 2 years. He chose not to say so. "What's your name?" he asked instead. "Myra," she said. "Myra Pavlik." "Just put the ledger back, Myra, please. Today especially." She set it back, carefully, as if she were laying down something that was alive. Then she said low, "There's a date wrong on it." He almost laughed. "Pardon." "On the cover sheet. The transfer date for the harbor warehouses doesn't match the date written on page 9. Page 9 says March. The cover says May. Somebody changed the cover but forgot the inside." Tomás stared at her, then at the cabinet, then at her hands, which were rough from work but very steady. "Myra," he said, "please go finish the bins." She nodded, picked up the bin, and went. He stood in the empty vestibule for a long minute before he opened the ledger and turned to page 9. The dates did not match. He told himself it meant nothing. Old ledgers had typos. Cover sheets were updated all the time. He told himself this on the stairs and again at his desk and again as he watched, from the corner of his eye, the visiting investor Vesco being walked through the floor by the senior counsel, all hands shaken, all teeth shown. By evening Tomás had not slept the idea off. By evening he had carried it, like a small coin in his pocket, up to the wood-paneled study on the top floor, where Don Lorenzo Caravello received the night reports. The hush in that room had a weight that even the carpet was made to honor. Lorenzo Caravello did not stand when men entered. He was perhaps 42, broad-shouldered, dark hair graying at the temples, a short trimmed beard, eyes that did not blink any more often than they needed to. The whole room oriented around him as if his stillness was a kind of gravity. Tomás stood at the threshold and said only what he had been called to say, which was that the night reports were on the secretary's desk. The boss nodded once. Tomás left. He did not mention the temp cleaner. He did not mention page 9. He told himself, walking down the long corridor, that men like him did not throw small coins onto tables like that. He was sure he would not mention it tomorrow either. He was wrong. In the morning the marble foyer filled. The lawyers wore their gentlest expressions. Adrian Vesco arrived at 11 in a pale gray suit that had clearly been cut on him personally, with a leather portfolio under his arm and a laugh that turned every head he passed. He kissed the senior counsel on both cheeks. He told the receptionist she had a beautiful smile. He shook Tomás's hand without seeing him. Myra was there too. She was not supposed to be on that floor, but the agency had sent her to wipe down the long signing table before noon, and Tomás watched her work along the white edge with a soft cloth, her shoulders square, her face calm. She did not look at Vesco when he passed. She did not look at the lawyers. She did not look at anyone. But once, between strokes of the cloth, she paused at the head of the table where the boss would sit, and her eyes moved across the folder set out there, very slowly, as if reading something written in a language only she remembered. When she straightened, she looked across the room and she found Tomás. She did not smile. She only let her eyes rest on his for a second, and Tamaz understood with a kind of cold clarity that whatever she had seen in the ledger downstairs, she had now seen here too. She left through the service door. He stayed. At 5 minutes to noon, Don Lorenzo Caravello came in. Conversation died as cleanly as a candle snuffed. He took his seat at the head of the table. Vesco took his at the other end. The lawyers arranged themselves in a careful semicircle, and the senior counsel began the recital of the deal in his most musical voice. Harbor warehouses, the 2 South Yards, a trust structure named for transparency. Numbers read aloud and approved with small nods. Tamaz stood against the wall near the door, where Junior Clerk stood. From there he could see the back of Vesco's head, the boss's still face, and the brass handle on the service door behind which Myra had gone. The handle turned very softly. Myra slipped back in. Nobody looked. Cleaners came and went. She had returned with a fresh stack of folded napkins for the side table, perfectly ordinary, exactly what an agency temp would be told to do. She crossed the carpet toward the side table. She did not glance at the long table once. But Tamaz saw her free hand. Inside the stack of napkins there was a single sheet of paper folded once. He saw the corner of it. She set the napkins down on the side table. She arranged them. She picked up a small carafe and refilled the water glass nearest the head of the table, which was the boss's. She lifted the folded sheet out from inside the napkins, and with the same calm motion she had used for the carafe, slid it under the lip of his folder, so that it lay beside his pen. It took perhaps 2 seconds. The senior counsel was reading Clause 4 aloud. No one heard a thing. No one's head turned. She straightened, set the carafe down, and walked with the same unhurried pace back to the service door. The door closed behind her without a sound. Don Lorenzo Caravello reached for his pen. His hand stopped. He had seen the sheet. Tamaz could not tell how. The boss had not looked down at any moment Tamaz could pin, but he had seen it. Caravello did not pick up the pen. He picked up the folded sheet. He opened it on the table in front of him, with the casual movement of a man checking a date. His face did not change. Tamaz would remember that for years. The face did not change, but the room around the boss changed. The temperature in the air around his chair seemed to drop by a degree. The senior counsel's voice, midway through Clause 4, hesitated for a beat that no one else would have noticed, because the senior counsel had also, without meaning to, looked at the boss. Caravello refolded the sheet. He set it under his palm. Then he raised one finger. "Adrian," he said gently, "tell me again the date the harbor warehouses changed hands." Vesco smiled. It was a kind smile, an open smile. "May," he said, "last May." "Lorenzo, we have been over this twice." "And the trust was registered when?" "8 months ago." Vesco spread his hands. "Lorenzo, please, the lawyers have all of it." "Read me the registry number," Caravello said, the same gentle voice. "From page 9 of your filing, aloud." There was a silence. Vesco's smile did not move, but something behind his eyes did. He looked at his portfolio. He looked at the senior counsel. The senior counsel looked back without help. "Lorenzo," Vesco said, "surely we don't need." "Read it." Vesco read it. When he had finished, Caravello unfolded the sheet beside his pen and laid it on the table. "Now read the number on the cover sheet of our ledger," he said. "The one in our records. The one that was, until yesterday evening, sealed." Vesco did not read it. He had gone very still. It was Tamaz, against the wall, who understood first what had happened in the night. That someone, on Vesco's side, had replaced the cover of the consortium's own ledger with a fresh page that matched Vesco's filing, so that no one comparing the two would see daylight between them. Someone clever, someone who had assumed nobody in the consortium would ever turn past the cover. Someone who had not counted on a cleaning temp with quiet eyes. "Adrian," Caravello said, still gentle, "on page 9 of our ledger the registry is different. The original date is different, which means the trust you have drawn up for me transfers holdings I did not, on the dates you have written, own to transfer. Which means, when this is signed, those holdings move into your structure on a date that predates my title. which means, in the eyes of any court that ever reviews this, I will appear to have signed away assets that were not yet mine. Which means, in turn, the structure swallows them quietly, and the path back to my family is closed. He paused. The senior counsel had gone the color of paper. It is a very elegant trap, Caravello said. Truly, I want you to know I see the elegance of it. Vesco opened his mouth. He shut it again. Senior counsel, Caravello said without turning his head. The pen, please. The senior counsel slid the pen forward. Caravello did not take it. Tear up the agreement. There was no shout, there was no scene. The senior counsel, with hands that visibly trembled, gathered the contract folder and tore the signature page in half, then in half again. He placed the pieces in the center of the table. Adrian, Caravello said, you will leave the building. You will leave the city by nightfall. You will return every document you have been provided by courier before dawn. You will not contact me, my family, my staff, or my counsel again. The records of this attempt will be preserved by my office against any future need. I trust you understand that future need. Vesco rose. He did not speak. He left through the foyer door with the same step he had arrived with, only quieter. The lawyers around the table did not look at one another. The senior counsel sat down very slowly, as if he were lowering himself onto something that hurt. Out, Caravello said, to all of them. To the lawyers, to the junior clerks, to Tomás. They filed out. Outside the door Tomás stood, his pulse drumming in his ears, and he watched the senior counsel walk past him without seeing him. He waited. He was not sure for what. He could not bring himself to leave the corridor. 2 minutes passed. Then the door opened again, and Don Lorenzo Caravello stood in it. He looked at Tomás. He did not seem surprised to see him still there. You, the boss said, the clerk from the night report. Yes, sir. Bring me the cleaner who was in this room before noon. Tomás's mouth went dry. Sir, she'll be on the lower floors. The agency rotates them by hour. Find her. He found her in a side corridor wiping the brass plate of a door handle. She did not look up when he came around the corner. She finished the plate. She straightened. Only then she said, he saw it then. He wants to see you. She did not flinch. She nodded once, set the cloth in her bin, untied her apron and laid it folded over the bin's edge, and walked beside Tomás back to the long corridor. She kept her hands at her sides. She did not ask what would happen to her. At the door of the study she paused. Tomás opened it for her. He stepped back. She went in. She would tell him later, much later, that the boss did not stand for her either. That he was seated behind the wide desk, the folded sheet of paper she had slid beside his pen lying open on the wood in front of him, his hands flat on either side of it. That for a long moment he had only looked at her. What is your name? Myra Pavlik. How long have you been with the agency? 3 months, sir. What did you do before? She had hesitated. I kept the records office at a small import company. For 7 years, it closed. Why did the cover sheet bother you? Because the ink was new, sir. The page beneath it had old ink. The cover had been written this week. The book had been written years ago. He had said nothing for some time. Then he had said very quietly, sit down. She had sat. He had said, I do not know how to thank a person who has done what you have done today. I have not had to learn the words. I would like, with your permission, to keep you. She had looked at him, sir. I would like to bring you in, to this house, to this work, as one of my own. A seat at the records desk you walked past this morning. Salary that is paid to a woman, not to an agency. Hours you choose. And my word and the word of this family, which is the harder thing, that you will be honored here for what you saw and for what you did with it for as long as you wish to stay. She had not cried. Tomás would learn that about her in the months to come, that she did not weep easily, that what looked like steadiness in her was steadiness. She had only said, yes, sir. Thank you. He had nodded once. Then he had said, there is one more thing. At 1 o'clock there is a meeting in the small room about what we do next. The lawyers will be there. The senior counsel will be there. I would like you in that room, beside me, if you will. I have an apron in the corridor, sir. Leave it, we will find you a chair. When the door opened again, Tamaz was still in the corridor. He had not moved. The boss came out first, then Myra behind him, her hands still empty, her bun still neat, her eyes a little brighter than they had been an hour ago, but otherwise unchanged. Caravello looked at Tamaz. You stay too, he said. You brought her up, you'll learn how a meeting like this is run. So Tamaz followed them into the small room. He would remember, all his life, what happened when they walked in. The senior counsel who had been talking fell silent. The lawyers who had been spread along the side of the table did not know quite where to look. A junior counsel who was new and had not yet learned how the room read started to rise as the boss entered, and then half rose again awkwardly when he saw Myra behind him. Nobody had pulled out a chair for her because nobody had known she was coming. The boss did not break stride. He walked to the head of the table, paused, and turned. He put his hand on the back of the chair to his own right, the chair the senior counsel had been about to sit in, and he slid it out from the table. Sit, he said, to Myra. She sat. The senior counsel found another chair. The lawyers rearranged themselves without a word. Then the boss took his own seat, opened a fresh folder, and said, We will start again. From the first page, slowly this time. Miss Pavlik will read with us. Outside the long window, the noon light moved on the marble. Inside the room, a quiet woman who had been invisible for 3 months sat in a chair at the right hand of the most feared man in the city, and the men who had not seen her this morning learned, gently and at once, how to see her now. It was, Tamaz would say years later, the first time he had ever watched a room change its shape around a single human being who had done nothing more, and nothing less, than tell the plain truth she had seen with her own eyes. He never forgot it. None of them did. And in the long quiet of the Caravello house, where every door was watched and every visitor weighed, the chair to the boss's right was, from that day forward, simply hers.